Joey, it wasn't just Matty Nicholson, but that entire Raiders pack were on fire. They were just bashing the Broncos through the middle.
It was a Ricky Stewart ambush. As soon as you saw Ricky on the sideline just stalking and like a spitting cobra, you knew they were on. They just bustled. They put so much energy into their effort areas and they were all up for the game. You could see it early. This bloke was sensational. So was Big Red. Geez, he was good. He looks lighter, more mobile, still aggressive, but yeah, I thought their forward pack was just sensational. Geez, it was a good game to watch.
No, the hooker was good. He was lively.
He looks lighter too, Papali'i. He looks a lot lighter than what he's been.
They just went after the physical game a bit more than the Broncos. It just shows you don't have the big names and the big stars, and you can still compete with anyone, and that's what the Raiders are doing at the moment. They're just committing themselves to the physical part of the game, and they attacked both with and without the footy.
Saved plenty of tries as well. So there was a stat there for a while. I think Brisbane had 20 tackles in Canberra's compared to 4 or 5 of Canberra in the Brisbane 20 metres, and saved plenty of tries. They backed each other. I thought their back rowers did a great job on Hunt and Adam Reynolds. They were just at them all game. Saw Nicholson score a couple of tries. Hudson Young was brilliant. He was at Reynolds all day, just palming him off, getting at him, making him work. And I thought it cost them. I thought them two were brilliant last week, the way they guided the team. And I think they went with a great game plan and it worked.
Joe, what do you think the Raiders this year? I mean, Ricky Stewart's the type of coach that he loves an underdog story as well, and he loves proving people wrong. But the Raiders are a side you can just never underestimate, particularly at home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know we're only 2 rounds in, but they're probably above shoulders at the moment in terms of the way people are playing footy. And I think a big focus on for them, and Jamal spoke about it in the press conference, is probably their consistency. They want to be a consistent side, and I thought they were outstanding. I actually got home to watch the game and thought they were really good. They looked fit, and their outside backs look really strong. They're hard to handle, and it definitely showed last night.
He's a good player, the winger, Tamale. Savali Tamale. He's strong. He got a ball once. The ball hit the ground. He picked it up and just took off. I thought he's only going to go 100. The gap closed, but to watch him accelerate, he's a player.
What was it? No Savage and no Tarpanay.
No Tarpanay, no captain.
Yeah, still to come back. That was a big win by the Raiders. The Broncos, boys, where do we see them? Obviously, they were really impressive. Round 1, put 50 points on the Roosters, and then couldn't back that type of performance up. What would Michael Maguire be thinking now?
I don't think any team would have beat Canberra last night. I think they were still really good. They just stopped so many tries. They would have stopped 4 or 5 out-and-out tries. And that's the name of the game. You score your half chances and you stop the half chances. Now, they'll be fine. They Friday night, they got the Cowboys up at Suncorp. You'll see a change of team next week.
Well, the pressure's now on you, Billy. Like watching Reece. Reece had one of those games where I think he made 4 or 5 errors and plenty of passes went to ground, and he looked a little bit frustrated. Canberra got in his face. I suppose the question is going to come at you every week, Kalen, Reece.
Well, sometimes when you're so used to finding space and things happening for you, you get the pressure of it happening all the time. So, the thing for not just Reece, but a young fullback and a young star player that finds space is to not go looking for it, is to look for that real tough side of the game, the commitment side of the game, the team side of the game. And when you get that, then the space will just happen for you. So I don't think it was just their fullback. I think it was a whole lot of players. But, those questions,
I'm going to ask every
yourself.
week.
It's round 2.
Every week I'm going to sit here and
I could answer that. I know if I was defending, I wouldn't want Kalen with the ball. We'll talk about him later. Frightening.
Well, we spoke about Origin even in week 1 when you said Turbo should be the fullback for New South Wales.
Yeah.
What about the Broncos, though? Do you think after that incredible win over the Roosters in round 1, did they buy into that hype a little bit? Because I know you got to stay focused and you're at training, but you can't escape it. I mean, if you're on social media and even if you're not watching the news, even going down for a coffee, everyone's giving you a rap. You can't completely ignore the hype.
I think it's a hard game. Like we spoke about Penrith and the Roosters in the first round. They went down there, they made more errors than they did against the Roosters, And then Canberra just piled on a heap of pressure and they got behind on the scoreboard and all of a sudden they had chasing points, just fell apart. So they learned a pretty good lesson.
I've got no doubt that every team goes to training and consciously they're thinking of the right things. I've got no doubt about that, but it's what is in your subconscious. What drips into your mind that you don't even know it's dripping into, whether it's through social media, listening to this show, reading the paper, whatever it is, listening to family members telling you how good you went last week, that feeds into your subconscious and stays in there. So no one's immune to complacency, and there were a few teams that would be guilty of that this week.
How's your subconscious at the moment?
Yeah,
I'd love to know what your subconscious
What is dripping into that, Brian?
It's fairly relaxed, to be honest. I'm not a have to do 100 million things in a day. I'm more just cool, calm, collected.
Are you a social media man?
You're about to be a father.
Yes, I'm about to be a father, so I've got a lot going on off the field as well, which Wayne loves their players getting away from footy and I suppose getting into the real world. And I'm expecting a little girl in the next couple of weeks or so. The missus is 37 weeks on Tuesday, so.
Did you do the balloon thing? Did you?
Nah, I didn't do a balloon thing. I was actually, how did we find out? So we were in Sicily, in Italy, and family friends over there had, obviously, I knew what it was. I knew it was the inevitable for me having a girl. So it was like, just sort of wrapping socks, and then a little pink little teddy bear came out with Baby Arrow on it. So it was nice and cool.
We're going to talk a bit more about that a little bit later. We've got plenty to discuss in your personal life, your surgery. I mean, whatever you're happy to divulge, that is for sure. But we'll see what's going on in that subconscious, that is for sure.
Not much. Give me head knocks.
Lost to the Panthers in round one over in Vegas. Wasn't overly pretty or flashy, but a gritty win nonetheless, particularly Billy Slater, given the fact that Craig Fitzgibbon revealed after the match that they had 5 players who were struggling with COVID, 5 players with the flu as well, and still managed to come away with the victory.
That's more than half their team, so that's quite impressive. Huge travel kilometres for the Sharks early in this season to go to Vegas and then to back up and head up to North Queensland, which the conditions, we all know what they're like at this time of the year. The Cowboys aren't travelling overly well, but they still had to do the job, and they put on plenty of points. So
they use a heat policy, so talk about conditions. It was extra hot.
How much tougher does that make it?
Going up there is very tough.
It was 80% humidity in Townsville. Will Kennedy had a good game too.
He's a good player.
Yeah.
He's improved out of sight.
I thought all their outside backs were outstanding. Kyle Hero scored a couple of tries.
He's improved out of sight.
Stone Street played well, and I thought Ronaldo was most probably the best.
So I'm watching them. They've got inexperienced halfback, young fella Dufty. I look at the Knights the other night, the way they used Kalen as a halfback and split their halves either side. Maybe they want to do that the same with Drinkwater. Drinkwater's the most creative player on the field, whether they split their halves up, which takes pressure off the young Dufty, and let Drinkwater. Anyway, but they're struggling. They're struggling. Especially with their forwards aren't going forward. So for a young halfback, it makes it very tough.
with the footy, I felt there was a couple of things. I felt they looked disorganised. They didn't look like they knew what they were trying to do. And then they looked really flat. They didn't look like they were getting deep and running onto the football. Without the footy, I think defensively is their biggest concern. And when you have 5 change of positions in your edges, so you've only got 8 edge players and 5 of those are new. You've got a new halfback, a new winger, 2 new back rowers and a new centre. And 2 of those guys have only played 2 NRL games. So there's some inexperience and change of combinations defensively on the edge. That's where all the Sharks' tries came. All of the Sharks' tries came on the edge of the field. So, I don't think it's panic stations at the Cowboys, although they have had 78 points scored against them in the first 2 rounds.
Well, they dropped one of their best players last week as well.
No. He'll be back. Oh, well, he'll have to come
Well, he was
back.
dropped last week. They put Jason Taumalolo, I think, played for the Blackhawks on the weekend.
But this isn't going to be fixed by bringing players in. This is going to be fixed by building that continuity of your edge defence. Too many players are doing different things, and we just know how hard the edge is to defend. It's a split-second decision. And it's a real feel with your edges, and I think that's a real concern for him at the moment.
I'll ask Jai, you've played with Tommy Dearden. Do you think he's got the voice and the dominant voice and the way he plays to play halfback?
Yeah, I think he does, but I think Tommy's a good runner of the footy, and I think he may need to go back to doing what he does well, and I think he's a tremendous runner of the footy. He's got a good voice out there. He probably needs to be that dominant half at the moment, having an inexperienced half as well. So I have no doubts he can do the job, but look, I think they just need to get back to it's cliche, but get back to the drawing board, work hard at training, fix, it's obviously not going to be a fix overnight, but work on their edge defence and anything could happen. Just keep sticking at it, and things will come.
Are they playing themselves in to buy? They'll win that.
That's a tough run. Broncos, Raiders, Panthers.
I only looked at the horns.
What for Todd Payton? How do you, after conceding 78 points in the first 2 rounds, and as we know, defence is all about attitude. How does he, because their confidence is going to be super low, how does he pull them out of that? If you're not going to keep dropping troops, if that's not the answer to keep dropping players.
No one knows what's going on up there. Firstly, no one knows why they really dropped him. They're not going to drop him because he missed a couple of tackles. So you got Jake Clifford also coming off the bench.
Would you put Clifford into the starting side again?
Well, I would, but I don't know what's going on up there.
Yeah,
I definitely would, because young Duffy's just too young at the moment for this type of pressure, I think.
Especially in a team that's struggling.
They've got Brisbane next week as well, so pretty big ask.
Yeah, I think they need to look at their systems. I think they need to look at their edge defence systems.
When you say look at your systems, people, you hear that all the time. What is this?
It's quite hard to explain sitting here on the couch, but on the edge, you've got split seconds to make a decision, and you nearly need to know what the inside and outside guy of you are doing.
Disjointed.
They look disjointed. One guy's going in, the other guy's staying back, and that's what's creating the space for the creative players on the edge.
Okay, well, I'll ask this. Have they got too many systems in the defence? Should they just have one system and stick to that?
To Freddie's point, we don't know what's going on up there. We don't know everyone's got a different system. Everyone has an edge coach, and everyone do different things. And there's more than one way to do things. But the key is for everyone in the team to do the same thing. That's the key for the edge defence.
They've lost Jimmy Maloney, so...
I saw Jimmy last week at the races.
He had them all stable, Jimmy.
He wasn't stable Saturday, let me tell you. He was in a good group.
You need someone like Jimmy, a goldfish. You do something awful, and then you come up with,
Jimmy's good
something miraculous.
It keeps things light-hearted. When things are going not too great and everyone's a bit serious, you can rely on someone like Jimmy just to lighten the mood. Always. And then he's an absolute punish and just drives people mad. Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
Oh, yes, it was a match for the ages. The Roosters getting the job done 38-32 over the 4-time defending premiers, the Panthers. No one gave the Roosters a chance. We spent the entire off-season talking about the fact that they'd lost so much experience. Then they lose Victor Radley and Lindsay Collins as well after getting pumped in round 1. And then, Freddie, we were there on the sideline. You just could not have scripted what unfolded. And the fact that the Panthers nearly came back at the end.
Well, they scored after 2 minutes, the Panthers. It was incredible. Everyone just sat back and just went, this is going to be awful, this is going to be embarrassing. But they just fought away. They just kept fighting, the Roosters, and they just kept turning up for each other. They scored that on the bell to take it to 18 all at half-time. And I think the biggest thing was half-time, the coaches and how they're going to come out of it. But Sandon Smith, I thought, Mark Nwanganutawasi come up with a couple of brilliant passes. Daniel Tupou, he now is the 6th highest try scorer in the game. Like, 6th highest try scorer, amazing.
How good was their captain?
Teddy's just a machine.
He was incredible. There have been a few question marks over him in the last 12 months, but boy, he was the glue to that team. And you're right, they all had a go. Sandon Smith just took the game on.
Connor Watson, busy.
Freddie, you know Teddy better than us, having spent so much time with him in Blues camp. What is it about James Tedesco that would have inspired the rest of his teammates? What is he like as a leader that we don't see?
Well, James coming to the stage where he's coming to the end of his career. Now, he's captain of this team, and he's going to leave a legacy. He's already captained a couple of grand finals in 18 and 19. And this is going to be, the coach would have said to him, mate, we've got a big option here. We can either face this and attack it, or we can, use our excuses about all our players gone and we've got injuries, and he just attacked it. And it's hard to watch Teddy play, and if you're in his team, not to be motivated and inspired by the way he plays. He just attacks everything. He's wholehearted, always looking for the ball, always trying to make tackles. So that's what he did, and they all just kept working and kept working. And you know what? Penrith fell apart because they didn't get into a rhythm. I very rarely saw Nathan kick down and their chase team went down and hustled him into a corner. Like, the game was stop-start, a lot of drop balls, penalties. It never got into any sort of rhythm, but they just kept turning up. There's the moment.
I know it was a plan. You know those coach kicks where they put them up when you're 40 out? They kick deliberately short to compete. Now, I've never seen anyone exploit Brian Toto. Everyone talks about, you know, how tall he is, but this was the first night I saw them exploiting their wingers. And they got 4 or 5 errors out of it. What about Penrith?
6 errors the wingers made.
What about Penrith? Dylan Edwards, how bad do you reckon that is? Like, we've both had bad groins. Carried him for like 12 months, 18 months. They just don't get right. The way he's hobbling there is a bad sign. When he came off, you could see him actually grabbing at the attachment.
Well, you can actually see the tape coming out of the back of his shorts. So he's obviously got some strapping on his right adductor there already.
It's an overuse injury, or can be an overuse injury, and we all hear about how fit he is, but him, Isaiah Yeo, Nathan, Liam Martin, they've played Origins, semi-finals, tours. They're not machines.
You think the workload's getting to them?
The workload, it's just...
and the way they play too.
And the way they play. It's really tough on them. Really tough.
Dylan Edwards is waiting on results of scans this morning, but he played through a couple of years ago a fractured foot, played an entire final series in a fractured foot. So you know if Dylan Edwards comes off, it's well and truly serious. So waiting on news this morning as to how bad that is. But Jai, you have them in round 4, I believe, the Penrith Panthers.
Yes, we do.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, no, it's always good to come up against the quality sides, and Penrith have been the best side for over 4 or 5 years now. So it's always good to come up against those boys, but a few injuries might be nice.
They got Storm.
They got the
Thursday
Storm
night.
down there. Storm this week. We've seen plenty of teams
Storm
bounce
coming
back
off
this
the
week.
bye.
So the Panthers coming off a loss and the Storm coming off a bye. That'll be, when's that, Thursday? Friday?
Thursday night. Yeah.
A big cracker.
Thursday night.
Could you tweak any changes, Freddie?
I'm trying to think who's to come through.
Liam Henry's there, would you?
Liam Henry, I think they could be a little bit bigger. Like, normally they would have started with Moses and James Fisher-Harris. At the moment, Lindsay Smith, who's a real worker,
Isaiah
sort of toiler.
Papali'i, he didn't play in round 2's clash.
He'll be back. They said it was only a minor injury.
Blaze Talangi there as well. You know, where he fits in, if he fits in, he's a quality player. So they have got some options.
They missed a lot of tackles.
Well, they're used to
one-on-one
defending
tackles.
15 points. Like last year, they had 15 points averaged a game. I think Cronulla scored 22 and they beat them, and then Roosters scored 38. So they're well behind what they're normally chasing.
And it come down to one moment. There was a moment right at the end of the game where Toto had a chance to score a try, and it was Daniel Tupu who pushed him into touch. So, they were that far away from, Nathan kicking to lock it up and take it to golden point. Here's the moment here. Toto's got this and he scored plenty of them. That was a big play by Tupu.
Well, you look at the try he scored at the other end. That was ridiculous, how he scored that other try. The Roosters were down to 12 players. They spent the last, 7-8 minutes with someone in the sin bin. Nathan had that huge call when they were 14 behind to kick the goal to go 12 behind, and then they scored in the corner and he missed the goal. So that sort of put his thinking and his mathematics a bit out of whack, but I think they got a penalty later on, which allowed them to come within a try. So it was an incredible game to watch. Incredible, just the way, Penrith, they just don't give up. They don't give up. They're just, you say they're not machines, but sometimes when you watch them, they just find something all the time.
Half human, half machine.
AI.
Cyborg.
Artificial intelligence.
Isn't that a breakfast? Cyborg?
Yeah, I had it this morning.
There we go. We're going into another area completely, but a Thursday night, Melbourne. Drip feeding all afternoon, that's for sure. Melbourne, Penrith, Thursday night, live and free right here on 9, the grand final rematch. You don't want to miss it. Warriors Seagulls. What a win it was for the Warriors, 36-16, getting the job done over the Seagulls at home, bouncing back from that disappointment over in Vegas. Do you have the latest on the injury to Tom Trbojevic as well? It is 50-50 news. The
50-50.
Sea Eagles are saying that he's a 50-50 chance of playing next week, Freddie.
wow.
So
That's great
it's
news.
only, minor, and looks like Daly Cherry Evans should play.
Is that 50-50 we made that up?
No, that's Michael Chamis has
right.
just
Okay,
tweeted it,
okay.
breaking news, that he's a 50-50 chance of playing next week. So great news for the Sea Eagles, but...
Well, that would indicate that the injury isn't overly concerning. It should be a short-term injury, which is great for Tom because he's had some long-term hamstring issues in the past. So I'm sure they won't be risking Tom if he is 50-50, but good news that it's not long-term.
It was an amazing game. They actually started where they finished last week, the Sea Eagles. They scored a try in the first couple of minutes. And then a bit like what Brewer saw in Brisbane, just made a lot of errors, allowed the Warriors back into the game. Although Luke Metcalf was outstanding, scored a try, set up a couple. And then they just had this momentum, the Warriors. They just kept coming, a bit like Canberra. They just hungry for the ball, hungry for the contest, and ended up scoring plenty of points.
How do the Warriors find that consistency? What have they got to do, Bill? To do this every week and every week on the road. What have they got to do?
They got to look at the two different performances. The round one performance where they didn't commit themselves, to that tough side of the game, the defensive side of the game.
But
and
how do they do that?
Train harder.
Do you think it's an individual thing?
Well, first game in Las Vegas, I think I could excuse some teams not to be at their best.
It's been happening for 25 years.
Well, that's why they got. That's why they agreed to pay James Fisher-Harris the money, because he's been in a system that has been so consistent for so long. 5 years, Penrith have finished in the top two. So, and they've got one of their leading players. I reckon they're hoping that, James Fisher-Harris, the way he trains, the way he behaves, hopefully rubs off on the team, and they do that. But I've got to say, they're pretty impressive.
Well, maybe the form line isn't that bad. We saw it with Canberra. Happened last night, what they did to the Broncos. Maybe the form line's not too bad. But we need the Warriors in the finals. We need the Warriors like in the early 2000s when Stacey and all those boys are on fire in the grand final. That's what we need off the Warriors.
Joey, what did you make of Luke Metcalf?
Really good.
The final try, he did a little bit of a silence to the critics. Andrew Webster said post-match that he thought the criticism on Luke Metcalf was unfair coming into this match. Filling the shoes, of course, of Sean Johnson, but pretty handy 80 minutes from him.
I really like him as a player, and he'll come into that side of the game management because his whole career, even probably when he was young in the juniors, is based around running game and his speed. So the game management's going to happen when the game starts to slow down for him. No Sean. We know what Sean was like the last couple of years, how dominant. So just be patient. It's going to take some time, but some really good signs. I think he's a top-line halfback for sure.
Which is a great attribute to have, that speed, that running game. Like, he can learn the other stuff. You can't learn speed. You can't learn to have that instinctive running game, but it'll all come to him. He's just starting out on his career.
I think if you've got to shush the crowd, you're listening to the wrong people. Anyone who's sitting there playing with the crowd, shushing them or throwing money out to them, whatever they're doing, I think, you're spending too much time listening to the wrong people.
You don't like players doing this stuff, Freddie.
Just vomiting the whole night.
Wow.
Anyway, I did see something marvellous, actually. The pre-game, they did a handover. Tohu Harris, the captain from last year, did like a... They
were handing over the captaincy essentially.
It's like a cultural thing.
Yeah, to
Passing
James
of the baton.
Fisher-Harris.
Is that a
Barnett?
Leadership,
a mouldy
passing on the leadership.
Tradition, a mouldy, because he was dressed in traditional, like a...
Handed over a couple
quite
of
cool,
objects.
actually.
But I thought it was fantastic. Like, just the...
Here it is.
This is literally as the teams were running out. Like, so Tohu Harris has come out and the rest of the boys are actually running out behind them. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. No wonder the team went on to fight their way back into a game and go on and win it quite easily. Like, how motivating.
They did say they wanted to do it for Tohu Harris. He and his family were there on show, so...